lamps fall apart. Solar flares arrive. Buildings collapse. Only a few will survive. The world as we know it will no longer be there. Water is gone. A new era has begun. Prepare yourself for the apocalypse. The apocalypse. The apocalypse. The apocalypse.
Greetings and salvations. I am Umfav Neverborn, the abyss that slumbers, and you are listening to the Eldritch God. Mad Dodge asked me to do a video for him, so I'm doing him one. Took me about a week to finally get through everything and come up with this pile of mess that I have currently, but, I have the video. What's it about? Hey, coronavirus, of course. I'm going to sum up a lot of what I've learned. Going to give you some new information at the end, so stay tuned to the end there. And then I'm going to explain why I'm pretty much going to give up on doing these videos for a while. Let's start off with, what just the fuck is this shit? Okay. We have an incubation period of up to 24 days. It could be reinfecting, or more terrifying, it actually is a form of lung herpes. We'll get to that later. And is basically like a wart. It just keeps coming back. This shit is airborne. It's undetectable for the first 3 to 6 days, whereupon you are shedding like an English sheepdog right after a soapy bath. It can infect dogs and cats, but doesn't apparently transfer back, as far as we can tell. But hey, good luck getting rid of that particular reservoir. And let's go down the list of what it attacks, specifically your internal organs. We got lungs getting coated with a gray glue-like substance. It causes swelling in your lungs, making it harder for the oxygen to get across the gap to your bloodstream. We have it attacking your heart. Those cells that never grow back once they're destroyed. It goes after your liver, but hey, everything fucks with your liver. It goes after your kidneys, shutting down the production of EPO, which controls how much hemoglobin you have in your pressurized cardiovascular system. Blood. That part that makes it red so it can transfer oxygen to your brain. Important little chemical there. It can get into your spine and cause viral encephalitis, basically coma and death. Oh, and I've seen one report. I don't hold this one very seriously, but I like it. Apparently it causes Tourette's of the spitting variety. Yeah, this thing reprograms your brain to make you want to spit on people. If that ain't some next level Last of Us bullshit, I don't know what is. Dear God in heaven, although I personally like the idea if it caused other forms of Tourette's, I just want to see an entire generation of people just cursing up a storm for the rest of their lives. That would be fucking hysterical. Hey, maybe I already got it. I'm cursing like a sailor as we speak. Now, this virus doesn't explode your cells like other viruses, but it buds out. That means that it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. It takes a chunk of your cell's membrane with it, so your body has a harder time noticing it. Oh, and apparently it has not one, but 3 different ways of getting into your cells. The ACE2 method is apparently the main one, but there are 2 other recessive ones that, with enough mutation, well, we could see an entirely new version of this monster, and it would be attacking a whole number of new organs, thus requiring a whole new set of antivirals and vaccines. By the way, let's address that while we're at it. We're a year out on the vaccine, period, end of statement. In at least a year to get it to you, probably 18 months. Deal with it. We are not getting a vaccine before this virus runs its course. As for antiviral drugs, none of them look good. I don't want to call it yet because they're not over, but I'm going to start with the one that I have seen. It's the quinine Z-Pack combo. For those of you counting on it to save humanity, it looks real bad for you. Hope you didn't actually lay any money down on that one. By the way, did anyone mention that the HCQ and metformin, when you combine it, has about a 35% chance of dropping you dead on the first pill? Yep. Oh, did you know 81 million Americans are on metformin? So basically, if you're diabetic, you have to stop taking your medication for about a week before you can start taking HCQ, which apparently isn't doing anything for you. The placebo came in at 96.6% successful, and HCQ is at 95. Not looking good there. Not looking good. I hope that people weren't counting on that to save our asses. I'll get to that later. I don't want to jump the gun, however. I'm going to wait for the full report to come out before I condemn this. So unlike so many of those out there who are claiming a 100% cure, I'm looking at you, Next News Network. So let's address the mild, severe, and critical definition bullshit. This thing seems to have no symptoms at all at about 30% of the cases. There is some anecdotal evidence that in those 30% of cases, there is a symptom. You have low body temperature. Yes, that's right. This thing may actually reduce your body temperature. So all that temperature gun bullshit to detect who's sick or not, that's fucking voodoo science. Okay? Now, at about 50% of the cases are mild. And by mild, I mean you feel like you are at the gates of hell. But you don't need to actually go to the hospital. I'm talking a body temperature of about 102, and you want to sleep for about a week straight. Now, about 16% are severe cases, meaning hospitalization, monitoring, and you need oxygen to stay alive. And about 4% of those are critical, meaning ventilators and organ failure. That's right, about 20% of cases need some degree of hospitalization. So when you were talking about that flatten the curve thing, I just want to point out at this point that that actually is an admission of failure. When we're flattening the curve, we're saying everybody's still going to get sick. We just want to spread it out so that the hospitals don't have secondary deaths. Okay? As for detecting this shit, well, apparently people are saying if you don't have the test, we can't count it. But rarely do you get pneumonia in both lungs at the same time. And apparently, from talking to some doctors I know who have been dealing with this, the sound of breathing with this crap in your lungs, apparently, as I'm going to quote here, that sound will haunt my nightmares, unquote. When you've done with enough cases of this COVID crap, you can apparently detect it with a stethoscope. And combine that with the x-rays, which, and I do love this description, your lungs look like they were filled with broken glass. Well, between those two, you can pretty much say with 95% certainty you have COVID-19. So all those people out there are saying we can't count on reports that didn't have actual viral tests, go screw yourself. Okay? Or you're saying every doctor out there is motivated by politics and lying through their, well, you pick an orifice. I do want to point out, by the way, that a lot of what I'm saying here is some of it's fringe, like the low body temperature. That definitely is a outlier. The Tourette's thing is definitely an outlier. But for the most part, I'm including all of this just so you know how bad this can be. All right? Most people, about 80%, you get this, you feel like crap, you recover, you're fine. 20%, you need a hospital, give or take. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is all those people who say this is just the flu are full of shit. And I would like to specifically call out Louder with Crowder, stating that we're labeling all flu deaths COVID deaths this year, just to inflate the numbers. And so I invoke the Taco Bell girl, why not both? You can get sick with both. Also, Crowder is full of shit, because I know of at least personally one person who died down in New York City from the flu. Not from COVID, the flu. It is labeled on her death certificate, pneumonia, flu-related. Period. End of statement. So that's at least one death in New York City, which was flu-related. Okay, Crowder? So that whole no deaths this year from the flu is bullshit. And by the way, you Google search, you get like 22,000 deaths in America according to the CDC, so you're kind of full of shit. Okay, on to the virus itself. Now, how many people out there have looked at the RNA? It's online. You can Google it. Or if you don't, I can get you this direct link to it. What I want to know is, has anyone ever seen ORF10 protein in a coronavirus? Any coronavirus. Besides COVID-19. No? Neither have I. I have seen it in other viruses, however. Herpes. And I would like to point out the ORF10 protein does appear on the end of the viral RNA chain. By the way, the RNA chain is shorter than the original bat coronavirus. It's almost as if part of it fell off and a new part from a different virus attached itself, which almost never happens. A new part of a virus will attach itself, sometimes, very rarely, but it just makes it longer, not shorter. So, oh, hey, what's that? It's a strange protein chain. It looks kind of like the P shuttle protein as patented by the Adgene Corporation. 68% match. Looks kind of mangled. Can't use it as a smoking gun, but, it could be the P shuttle if it was through, 1 billion replications. Just saying. But hey, it's not a chimera. We have a bat coronavirus, 96% match, and a 4% match of herpes, the part of the herpes virus that is believed to make herpes virus stable and relatively mutation-free. Did you know herpes only has 9 strains and it's basically over 2,000 years old? Yeah, it's a very stable virus. So if I wanted to figure out how to cure the common cold, I would take something that was like the common cold, like, bat COVID, and I'd stick a little herpes on the end of it to make it stable, because trying to decipher RNA/DNA requires, it's an idiot code. You need millions of examples to attempt to figure it out. And if you got something that's mutating constantly, well, you can't figure it out. That's why we can't figure out the common cold. It mutates at the drop of a hat. If you put a little herpes ORF10 on it, hey, you got a much more stable virus, much better chance of figuring it out. By the way, this is the exact same plan that basically happened in, I think it was South Carolina, 2015 here in America. It leaked out that we were making super viruses. Well, guess what? Yeah, this is basically the plan. Yeah. So, hey, Obama did something right. Now, here's a question for everybody out there. In 1918, we lost about 1% of the population of the U.S. Not all from the virus, mind you. And we basically descended into open anarchy in several states, and a whole lot of people died from secondary deaths. This thing is on track to kill 2 to 3% of the planet by my numbers. If 1% is enough to reduce entire states into war zones in the United States of America, what do you think is going to happen to the less stable parts of the world? We're just talking deaths from the disease so far. When this goes past a country's surge capacity, you get extra deaths on top of that, which I think is what is actually happening over in Spain, France, and Italy. I think that when I do the numbers, I'll get to this later here, but there's something off with their death totals. I'll explain that later there. But there's bound to be extra deaths when this thing really gets going if it kills a lot of people suddenly. So I want to bring something up because from all those people are going that they're inflating the numbers just to scare people. I want to explain something. Which makes more sense to you? 1, Donald Trump is inflating the numbers, trying to get people to panic and thus destabilize the world so he can use 5G to control our minds or something? I don't understand what his advantage is in making the United States panic. I really don't. I don't see how Donald Trump benefits from torpedoing the economy he worked so hard to build. I really don't. But hey, maybe there is some advantage for him. Or option 2. Donald Trump, along with every other world leader, is scared shitless and is trying their best to downplay this because they know they got nothing. They keep offering up 100% cures that do not show their cures. I would point out the HIV drugs were supposed to be a cure, and those HIV drugs, Oh, we have super anti-inflammatories which will cause cytokine storms and basically kill you. So, the super anti-inflammatories didn't work. And now we've got this malaria drug with Z-Pak, which is an antibacterial and should have no effect on the virus whatsoever. Always sounded weird those two were being combined, but hey, details. And, it looks like the HCQ is actually kind of likely to kill anybody with diabetes and just doesn't work. Whee! They also like to talk about promising vaccines. Yeah, promising. Promise in a dollar will get you a cup of coffee, basically. Don't tell me about promising vaccines. Tell me about actual vaccines you are ready, have already tested, and are prepared to put into my vein. Until then, don't tell me about promising jack. We got a year to 16, 18 months before we will see mass deployment of a vaccine, assuming the virus hasn't mutated into some new shit that makes the vaccine worthless. Okay? I think it's option 2, and the goal is to calm you. Because the system only works if you trust the system. If you have faith in the system will work no matter how many people die. If you and everyone around you doesn't believe in the system anymore, well, the system doesn't exist. So which is more likely? Trump wants you to panic, or he wants you to stay calm? If he wants you to panic, why would he claim only 60,000 will die in America? When he could, by math, real easy prove, 14 million dead. In America, easy. So, we come to the part where I'm going to do some actual math with you guys. I've been spending a week trying to figure this out because none of these figures make any sense. However, I think I may have actually cracked the code, both what I think are the real numbers and how Trump is figuring this out. Okay? Now, I want to start with the actual equation. It's real simple. You take your population, you multiply it by how many people you think are going to get infected, and then you multiply it by the CFR, or the rate of fatalities. And that will tell you how many people are going to die. Period. End of statement. There's no need to mess around. You got those 3 numbers, you know how many people are going to die. So everything everybody does is just trying to figure out how those numbers are going to look when this is all done. Okay? So let's deal with the infected percentage, shall we? Because that's the easiest part. Now, we've been studying epidemics and viruses for a century, more, decades easy. We have lots of data. We know how herd immunity works, and, well, let's be honest here. This will definitely come to an end when about 70 to 80% of the population is infected. 70% worldwide, 80% in highly industrialized, interconnected countries. It won't go any higher than that. It's a mathematical impossibility. Okay? On the low end, what's it going to be? That's a good question there. For that, I'd like to compare it to the flu. Now, the flu has an infection rate of 1.3, but let's round that up to 1.4. I want to be on the margin of error here. And what's the RO infection rate for COVID? Well, we've got 3, 4, 2.38, 2.9. I think 3 is a good average. I think that in the end we'll find out that the RO was about 3. So we have an RO of 1.4 for the flu and an RO of 3 for COVID. Subtract 1 from both and we have 0.4 and 2. Divide 0.4 by 2, we get 5. What's that mean? It means that COVID is probably about 5 times more infectious than the flu. How many people does the flu on average infect worldwide? Well, on average, it gets about 6.4% of the population on an annual basis. Multiply that by 5, we get 32. I think it's pretty safe to say it'll get at least 32% of the world, probably any given country. So, let's round that down. We'll round it down to a minimum of 2 billion worldwide and 5 billion maximum worldwide. 100 million in America and 230 million in America as the maximum. There, we have our highs and our lows. Now we just need to figure out the CFR. This is the part that gets difficult. See, it's all over the place, but I think I figured it out. There's some people claiming that we're only seeing 1% of the total infected. That's bullshit because, well, we can run the numbers with only seeing 1% of the affected. And it turns out if that's correct, then we've already infected about 16% of America. And that means that basically in 6 days, nobody is going to die. Well, 21 days on the outside. Somewhere between 6 and 21 days, all deaths stop. So, if that's true, we only got 21 days to wait. And then this is over. If this is over in 21 days, I will put on a grass skirt and do the hula. I will gratefully and happily admit that I was wrong about everything. I will be so happy to be wrong I hope this is over in 21 days. I don't believe that. Then I multiplied it by 10. That's about 38 days until this is over. Still not quite right. And a lot of the other numbers don't match up. The minimum CFRs of various countries don't match up. But I played around with the numbers until I think I finally figured it out, because when I put in these adjustments, pretty much within a margin of error of 5%, most nations show up. Except for obviously lying countries. We know pretty much what the numbers are, okay? And I think I figured it out too. We're only seeing 25% of the infected cases. And in America, I think the deaths are on point, but I think worldwide we're only seeing 90. We're seeing more deaths recorded than actually are, but not by much. A factor of 6%. So the real death total should be 94% of the numbers that were given, I think. It's definitely overinflated in France, Italy, and Spain. When I run the numbers for those three countries, it doesn't add up. It gets really wonky. However, when I do a simple adjustment of downplaying the deaths by a third, it all matches up. So I think this isn't a deliberate falsehood. I don't think they're deliberately screwing this up. I think it's just a difference in methodology. And, well, the adjustment, as far as I'm concerned, is just to adjust for the difference in methodology. I don't think it's a deliberate conspiracy. I just think, they keep track of deaths by a different standard over there than the rest of the world. And that's why there's this discrepancy. So, only 25% of the cases. I'm pretty certain of this. I mean, it matches up very nicely no matter which country I run through. So, what does that mean? Well, quite simple. That means that the minimum CFR comes out to 1.44%. And it means the maximum CFR is basically 6%. And when you average it out, it comes out to 4.4%. But to be honest there, I feel that's a bit high. I don't have any basis for my feelings, but I choose to feel that it's high. And originally, the original estimation, which has been pretty close no matter how I run the numbers, seems to be pretty consistent around 3.4% CFR. That was originally what the CDC, WHO, UK, and the EU all said it was, and I want to stick with that number. Okay, just because I know you're like, hey, you're dropping a full percent off the CFR on average. Yes, because I want you to know I'm lowballing this. Okay, I want you to know I am going low. Okay? I've been going low on all the figures. I've lowered all the numbers. So these final numbers I give you, understand, these are lowballed figures. Okay? I don't want you to accuse me of making fear porn. Trust me, you want me to make fear porn? I'll show you on paper how, 680 million people will die. All right? I can do that. Now, this is, I think, pretty close to the real numbers we're going to see. And it looks like it's going to be over the next 3 to 5 months that you're going to see most of this happen. So, lowball, 28 million dead worldwide. High end, 300 million dead worldwide. Mid-range, 120 million dead. That's pretty consistent with all the numbers I've been seeing over the past 3 months. It's actually scarily close to everything that I've been seeing that I've been doing piecemeal. And since I live in America, we're going to do America stats. In America, we're looking at about 1.4 million dead in America on the low end. The high end is going to be about 14 million. And the mid-range is going to be about 5.5, 5.6 million. Now we come to Trump's numbers. Trump has said that it was going to be 240,000 dead It was going to be 100,000 dead, and the latest number is it's going to be 60,000 dead. It's also said that the CFR is 0.37%. Now, I don't know if you know how math works, but we can reverse equations. So if we assume only 60,000 dead, and it's got a 0.37% fatality rate, that means that Donald Trump is expecting only 16 million people to get infected. 5% of America. If he was correct about the 240,000, that's 20% of America being infected. And I think I've already established this is 5 times more infectious than the flu. I'm pretty set on it infecting at least 100 million Americans. So, even by his own math, this should be killing somewhere around 500,000 people in America alone. Assuming he's right. I don't get it. This is why I'm not going to do the videos anymore. Because after this, 21 days. It's either over in 21 days or I'm right. This is going to kill millions or it's not. And we're going to know in 3 weeks. Because the only way this works out with his numbers is if we're only seeing 1% of the cases. It's the only way. By my numbers, it's not even close. By everything that I've estimated here, can't work. The only way his 60,000 is right is if we're only seeing 1% of the cases, in which case 16% of America is already infected, and this is going to be over before summer. I hope it is. I really, truly it is. But I don't see much of a point in keeping these videos up. Because all I'm going to do is be repeating the same shit over and over and over. And with it being 3 weeks out, it's going to be easy to see who's right and who's wrong. Either everybody's going to stop dying in America in 3 weeks, or they're not.
Rather brutal here. We're advising our clients to put everything they've got into canned food and shotguns.
Eldritch out.